throwing John off.
That's fine. The Oklahoma Sooners wide receiver room has to step up.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later in the episode. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. ESPN released their SEC spring storylines, and they took a look at the position to watch for every team. And for the Oklahoma Sooners, Jay, it's the wide receiver group. It was a struggle bus in 2024. It's already looking like it's a struggle bus in 2025. Kids are missing their pickup times and not getting started in spring ball. What is going on with wide receiver, Jay?
Our pets' heads are falling off. You name it, it's all starting to happen. But no, on this one thing we have to remind ourselves that this is football. People are going to get hurt. People are consistently going to be dinged up, banged up, and springtime is when people start to get their bodies adjusted and used to getting initially hit, to where in the fall you can start building those calluses up to be able to survive a full season of getting banged up, man. Like, they said the theory on it is like in playing football, you're in like 30 car accidents, especially in the trenches. 30 small car accidents, but it's a lot of, bang, bang, bang. So the wide receiver spot is definitely a position of intrigue, which I get where ESPN's coming, because Deion Burks is in a boot right now. So, he's trying to recover fully and prepare for the season. May have hurt his ankle, may not, I'm not sure. Jayden Gibson kind of had a small setback with that knee, but it doesn't sound like it's anything serious. It just sounds like he's out for the spring, which is a good thing, which means that, we're going to start seeing more players, and some of the young players really step up. And honestly, I kind of wanted to see a little bit more of that as well. I definitely get that John Mateer needs to get acclimated with the wide receiver room, but it sounds like we talked about in the last episode, Javonte Gibson is the guy that seems to be they're having a nice little relationship building moment, and it looks like he may be shining out of everybody that's on the team. So that being said, I totally get ESPN's thought on the wide receiver room being intriguing, but John, I'm going to be honest, I'm a little surprised they didn't talk about the offensive line.
Well, with the offensive line, I think you had a lot of injuries last year. It was a struggle last year, and it's got to get better too. No doubt about that. I think some of the concern here is that, listen, we are dealing with wide receiver injuries like we've had for the last 7-8 months now. Like, it's been a year, actually more than a year. Like, wide receiver injuries have been a thing for more than a year. And I don't know what it is about the turf that they're running on, or what, if they changed the turf in recent years and now it's just not conducive to running routes. I'm not sure inside the Switzer Center if that's a big issue, but I don't know, man. My conspiracy theory brain wants to go off, and I'm not going to let it. But no, I just need these guys to get healthy. Now, thankfully, at wide receiver, you got Jacob Jordan, who started to kind of break out last year, late in the season. You brought in Isaiah Satania. That gives you two options in the slot. On the outside, to fill in for Jayden Gibson, you've got Keontez Lewis, who had a big productive season last year. And then you brought in also you've got Zion Kearney, you got Ivan Carrion, you have Elijah Thomas that you brought in, who people are already raving about. So you've got options at least. You're not now. You hope that those options are able to step up. They need to step up. Offensive line not being mentioned really. I get that, but I think that just goes to show the trust that's in Bill Bedenbaugh not to have another down year. That they're kind of writing 2024 off as an aberration year, which I think it was because of all the injuries. But what do you think of just the offense in general? Because that's the top storyline for ESPN. And that's really, I think, what everybody is watching is how the offense improves. Because as I mentioned, last week, I think it was, that Oklahoma only averaged 13 points per game on offense in SEC play.
Yeah, the defense was scoring just as many touchdowns as the offense. It felt like every time you looked up, the defense was putting points on the board, from the Kip sixes to R. Mason Thomas picking up fumbles and Kearney picking up fumbles for touchdowns. It seemed like the defense was trying to do everything they possibly could to win games. And again, I get why the offense is definitely the focus here. We were ranked under 100. We were like 111, 113, 115, 130th.
100
we were
terrible.
awful on the offense. 100 and terrible.
Yeah.
So, but that's the good thing, is that I don't care what anybody says or thinks. There's no way we're going to be that bad again.
No way.
Unless there's a bunch of injuries that happen. There's no way. Right? Like, unless we have another season where it's a bunch of injuries, we're not going to be that low again. Even if Michael Hawkins is the one playing our quarterback for a while, or Cole Gonzalez goes in, we're not going to be worse than we were last year. We don't have a whole bunch of young dudes trying to lead the way anymore. We've got more veterans. And the one reason why I also understand why ESPN did not put the offensive line on this one too is that we brought back just about everybody. You only really had, two graduates that really counted, as well as one transfer in Gary and Hatchett, and losing Spencer Brown and Michael Tarquin. But outside of that, everybody else is back, and everybody else is expected to participate next season. So that's the good thing, is that the offensive line did bring back a lot of the players. Wide receiver, though, is intriguing. I'm glad you mentioned it about the transfers and them coming out, because you can also throw in there Josiah Martin, which is another young wide receiver who come from Cal, and he can go out there and play in some slot. But yeah, the young players that I'm really excited about, Elijah Thomas is one that I think kind of can break out and be an instant impact player as a true freshman. He's had that talent watching him at Chakotah, and I've raved about him on numerous episodes here on the show. So I want to remind people that he's one player that has always jumped out that I feel like could be a super impactful player early. But you're right, John, when you look at the rest of the players, I mean, from Zion Kearney, Ivan Carry-On from that class, Manny Choice, and then you go into all the transfers that we brought in. And so the good thing is, I don't think that there's an issue with the quote-unquote turf or anything. It seems like it's only certain players that seem to be having issues, because, I mean, I've noticed our safeties are fine. I noticed that a lot of our corners are fine. Well, I think we got two that stand, and we'll talk about that on who should step up in the defensive position later in the show. But it just seems like certain players are having problems, and it seems consistent. So, to me, I just need some guys to get out there and stretch, make sure you got some flexibility.
Right.
That'll probably help us in the long term. But I ask you this, John, when it comes to your ideal starting lineup at wide receiver, who would you like to see as your ones and your twos?
So ideally, I'd love to see it be Deion Burks, Jayden Gibson, and Giovanni Gibson. Like that, in an ideal world, Jayden Gibson is fully healthy and ready to go scorched earth on college football. And Deion Burks is fully healthy, and Giovanni Gibson is who we think he's going to be.
Who do you have as a fourth?
If you have fourth, Isaiah Satania or Jacob Jordan.
Okay.
Just pick one.
Ooh.
Whichever one you like best. That's my second slot guy. So if I'm running 4 wide receivers, that's my other guy out of the slot that I want to see. Because I think both those guys, like Jacob Jordan, he proved that he can get open against SEC competition, and he can make plays for you. So that dude needs an opportunity to earn a role on this team, because he showed that he could do it last year. As a true freshman, walk-on, underrated slot wide receiver. Isaiah Satania has got the ability to play with the ball in space. Like, once he gets his hands on the ball, he can make plays after the catch. So I think that's a guy that has the potential to create big plays for you in the short passing game after the catch. So that's intriguing to me. Obviously, Josiah Martin's an intriguing name too. I think, listen, if there's a positive you could take away from a guy like Deion Burks being out or Jayden Gibson being out, they're veteran players. They don't necessarily need the spring, quote unquote. It gives opportunities for the rest of the team, or the rest of the wide receiver group, to work with John Mateer, to work with the first team offense, to maybe earn a role like Elijah Thomas or Emmanuel Choice. They get some significant snaps in spring ball with the first team offense potentially, and maybe they can put themselves in a position in the fall to be part of that wide receiver rotation and actually go make some plays. So if anything, I think there is going to be a earnest approach to make sure everybody's ready. Like, you cannot take a spring off and just be like, oh no, he's a true freshman, we're not going to play him. I think last year showed you've got to have everybody ready. I don't care if they are the number 1 wide receiver on the roster or the guy that's number 12. everybody's got to be ready to go. And you can't sit back and just expect, no, I'm going to redshirt this year so I don't have to prepare.
Nope.
Emmett Jones needs to show everybody the wide receiver snaps from last year and be like, be ready, because your name might get called.
Very quickly.
Very quickly.
Very quickly.
So speaking of the offense, who needs to step up on offense? We'll talk defense in the third segment coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From top seed team stars to unexpected upsets, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week are the Duke Blue Devils. John Shayer's team, led by National Player of the Year candidate Cooper Flagg, just ripped through the ACC going 19-1. Sheesh, the Blue Devils are plus 434 points in ACC games, the largest point deficit by power conference team in league play since Kentucky in 1953-54. Wow. When it comes to Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer. And that's exactly what the Duke Blue Devils have done here. It's clear our Team of the Week is out here, ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in your all-new Nissan Armada or any Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Jay, a lot of guys need to step up on offense in order to improve an offense that was pitiful last year. Absolutely pitiful. We both agree it's not going to be as bad as it was last year. If it is, everybody's getting fired. We're going to have a whole new reset in 2024 or 2025. I'm trying to make it last year again. So, in your mind, who is a player that has to step up?
The one I feel like that needs to step up the most right now, and it's mainly because we've seen the flashes and we need to see them again. It's got to be Gavin Sawchuk. The good thing for him is we're seeing that he's bulked up. I think he's like over 200 pounds now, so it looks like he's put on a little bit more meat and potatoes on the body, and we need him to be able to go out there and lead this running back room. I know that him and Sam Franklin have been taking a lot of the one snaps right now. I'm assuming some of the other guys may be either dinged up or working through some things. I know Taylor Tatum is playing baseball right now, so the assumption is that we're working through who could potentially have the ones. I know Javante Barnes is also down, whatnot with that foot. So I need Gavin Sawchuk to really step up. He gave us 5 straight 100-yard games at the end of the 23 season. In 24, it just never looked like he was just comfortable. And if he can just get to a good, healthy feeling and get out there and hit those holes like he was before, I think that he could be a game changer for what the team's going to do next year. Who do you think is the offensive player that needs to step up for you?
Yeah, I think Gavin Sawchuk is a good choice because you need somebody to solidify those first running back snaps, and you need somebody to play consistently. I'm gonna go with Zion Kearney. I think this is a kid that's got immense talent. I think he can be a wide receiver one. I think he's got big time ability. The drop in the bowl game was definitely a bummer, but you saw that he can create some big plays for you. He's one of those guys that can do a lot of things. He can win in a lot of areas. He's not just a deep ball guy. He's not just a guy that can win in the short area of the passing game. He's not just a dude that can take jet sweeps. He can do all of it, and he can do all of it pretty well. And so I think with the fact that you've got Deion Burks out and you've got Jayden Gibson out, this creates an opportunity for a guy like Zion Kearney to earn significant snaps on the outside. And I think if he's able to develop this offseason, if he's able to continue to improve his game and build off of what he did as a true freshman, I think he's one of those candidates for potential breakout this year. We saw the same thing out of Jayden Gibson, right? In 2022, it was rough, man. And everybody was wondering, like, what? This guy was a 4-star? I don't know. It's not going to come together for him. Too many drops, just didn't seem to have it. And then that 2023 season, he had 14 catches and like 5 or 6 touchdowns. Yeah. And he averaged like 20 8 yards per reception. The dude, like as a rotational wide receiver, he came into the season as the 5th wide receiver. Injuries allowed him opportunities to play a little bit more, but he was creating big plays, and not just in games where it was, against Tulsa or whatever. Like he did it against West Virginia, did it against TCU. If you don't remember the image of Jayden Gibson literally dragging a TCU cornerback to the end zone as he's basically holding up the one, looking to the crowd and celebrating like 3-4 yards. That was wide receiver one mentality. That was I'm him mentality. Jayden Gibson had that after a terrible true freshman season. Zion Kearney didn't have a terrible true freshman season. It was just a true freshman season, right? It was just one that was a rocky one, up and down, and it was just a bummer. It didn't meet the Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith like level of true freshman greatness. It was just the typical true freshman season.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for him to build on what he did last year and make more of it, because I think he's got the ability, man. It's there. He just needs to get more confident and more consistent.
No, I agree. I like the Zion Kearney pick because that touchdown against Navy and the way that you saw that he was getting himself going at the end of the season makes me feel a lot more comfortable with him. He's a good blocker. I think that's the one thing that's pretty underrated about his capabilities is that he can actually block. And at 6'1", 200 pounds, he's built like a SEC wide receiver, NFL caliber wide receiver. He's got the size. He's got everything you're looking for. So for him, it's really going to be about the mental portion of it, making sure that he's not only knowing the playbook, but understanding his spacing and, like I said, continuously blocking. I love a wide receiver that can block. And I think that's the one thing that we saw a massive improvement when Emmett Jones got here is the wide receiver room started to block very well. You start to see a very big increase in that, and then you start to see the running backs be able to produce from it. So if Kearney can go out there and do that, I'm totally with you that he'll have an opportunity to truly play. I think it's going to be between him and Keontez Lewis out there as the other wide receiver on the other side of Giovanni Gibson. And as long as Kearney shows us that he's ready to take on that, if anything, I know the rotation will probably be Keontez Lewis with Zion Kearney. But that gives you two nice size wide receivers with Keontez Lewis being 6'2". That gives you two nice size wide receivers to go along with that 6'2", 6'3", Giovanni Gibson. And then hopefully Jayden Gibson gets you back out there on the outside as well. So I kind of like the idea of that. The wide receiver room, and I get why ESPN called them the most intriguing because there's so many players that now we're just waiting to see who they truly are. And I think that's the big thing about Kearney that jumped out to me too, as you mentioned, that is, I want to know who he is. Is he going to be that dude that's going to be a massive possession guy? Is he going to up his speed and start outrunning everybody and being a speed guy? Or is he going to be a dude that's always open? Just finds a way to find that pocket, kind of like Jacob Jordan was doing last year. He was always finding a way to just be open. And I think that relationship, with John Mateer is going to determine a lot of that.
Yeah, and it's wide receiver. I mean, I think we need to see a consistent group. That's part of the issue, right? Part of what we ran into last year, it just was inconsistent as to who was getting the snaps and who was playing. And the guys that were playing were inconsistent as well. So I just need consistency. That's going to be like the buzzword for wide receiver in 2025. Like competitive depth has been in the past. It's going to be consistency for wide receiver. Offensive line, I mean, you could name any number of guys that need to step up, right? You have veterans coming back in Troy Everett and Fabechi Wiwu. And then beyond that, it's a wide open position battle.
It is. Like, I'm sensing, of course, Troy Everett is going to definitely be your starting center. And shout out to Bill Beatonbowl on that pickup. You got him from Appalachian State, and folks was just like, what? You go get him? He complained. But it's fascinating because you pick him up after what you saw he did against Texas A&M in that one game. And, I mean, he kind of struggled against Texas, in 2023. He ended up moving in, the true freshman Caden Green in there, who did a heck of a lot better against those big boys that Texas had. But then last season, he became your best offensive lineman. He was. As soon as he was able to play, he was your best guy with, like you said, Fabechi Wiwu being your most consistent, because he was the only one I think that played the entire season. I don't think he missed a game, which is huge for an offensive line that was dealing with all the stuff that it was dealing with. But you had Troy and Fabechi both not missing the rest of the season once Troy Everett started playing. Yeah, those are two dudes that's going to be your most consistent, and your two guys that are guaranteed to start. The rest around them, it's going to be a fascinating conversation. We got to break down the each position group over the next week during these 15 practices that we get. It's going to be fun to really, determine who's going to be what.
Yeah, what did Troy Everett have to say about Michael Fasusi after practice on Monday? The dude's a freak. So let's not sleep on the potential that guy could earn some snaps this fall. Who needs to step up on defense? On a unit that was really, really good last year, but we need to get better, right? Next, Locked On Sooners. Before Roy, NIL deals were often handled behind closed doors, and fans like you didn't have a clear way to directly support the players you love. Now, with Roy, you can make a real impact and feel closer to the athletes representing Oklahoma. With Roy, you get to choose the player you want to support, decide how much you want to contribute, get exclusive content straight from the athletes you back. The best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back, so it's a risk-free way to show your support and make your voice heard. Support your favorite players directly and help shape the future of the Oklahoma Sooners. Download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing Oklahoma athletes the way they deserve, with transparency, trust, and real impact. The future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players over at Roy. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Jay, the defense was the bright spot of the 2024 season. Man, my timeline is all messed up. I got Loki messing with some things in my head right now. Anyway, the God of Stories is messing up my story right now. Sorry, that's a deep cut Marvel reference right now for all of you guys.
Good stuff.
So going into this year, like, you're losing Danny Stutzman, you're losing Billy Bowman, Ethan Downs, Dejon Terry, Woody Washington, some great players, some valuable veteran pieces. Who do you think needs to step up on defense for the Sooners?
I think the defense is going to hinge more on the linebacker room and what Kobe McKinzie and Kip Lewis, got to give you two on this one, do in comparison to any other position out there. Totally get it. Understand that most people are going to say, but what about the defensive line? The secondary needs to improve. Cool. I think that the leadership that you're going to get from your linebacker room, with them, barking the orders, moving people around, making sure everybody's in the right position, getting the call out early enough. I think that was one of our biggest problems last season, is that we would get the call out there late, and then the adjustments would have to happen, right before the snap. And sometimes we missed out on some things. We ended up, missing and having some busted plays because, the play call was so much later. Well, I don't think that's going to be a problem with Brent Venables. I think he's going to have an idea of 2 plays, maybe 3, to get them out there and get them prepared, and let the players make their adjustments based upon what they see in front of them. And I think it's going to really hinge heavily on Kip and Kobe, especially Kobe, if he's the one rocking the green dot, to be able to command that defense and really guide everybody. I think those two are going to be your most important ones, probably over, for this coming season. Well, for this spring practice. This is more so spring practice right now. They're going to be the most important because they're going to be the ones that's going to really set the tone for what this defense is going to do.
I'm not going to choose a player. I'm going to choose a joint, and that's Gentry Williams' shoulder. I need Gentry Williams' shoulder to step up. I need you to step up, and I need you to be healthy, my man. Like, I really do. Like, that kid has some star potential to him.
He does.
And with Eli Bowen, on crutches, and Jacoby Johnson inconsistencies as last year in 2024, I need Gentry Williams to step up and solidify cornerback for me. Like that, yeah. And not Gentry Williams, but his shoulder. I need his shoulder to be healthy for the entirety of the 2025 calendar year. I'm praying it. I'm naming it. I'm claiming it. Bless it.
Claiming it now.
Yep. We're doing it. Gentry Williams is going to have that resurgent year because, one, you need him to, and two, sometimes taking a step back and being out for the year can just kind of refresh you and re-energize you. I know he's probably chomping at the bit right now to be out there and get into football activities after really not doing a whole lot last football season. If he can step up, if he can be healthy, he will make a huge impact on this defense. He'll be a more important addition than anybody else that you added on defense. He'll be more important than Kendall Daniels, more important than Marvin Jones Jr. If he is fully healthy for 2025, that will be the comeback player of the year for Oklahoma on defense.
No, I agree. Gentry's probably he's one of the more critical players. That we get him back, that changes a lot of stuff on that side of the ball. Same thing with Eli Bowen when he comes back healthy. Now he's young, so you're still watching him grow, and we get to watch him blossom in front of us. And I think he'll be fine. I mean, I've been reading some stuff online saying that it's an ankle sprain, and no worries. I'm not concerned about him, being healthy once we get more to the summer training as well as fall ball. But yeah, Gentry shoulder. Yeah, that's a great point. The secondary gives me little concern whenever we see Gentry come back to the field. But the good thing is, I mean, it's probably not really a good thing, but the little silver lining, I guess you could say, you're going to get out of Gentry and Eli not really being available is getting to see some of the young players and the freshmen play. I think Jeremiah Newcomb is still is a little banged up as well, but you're going to get to see Tristan Haynes as well as Cortland Guillory and Malik Hawkins really get some reps, so you can understand what do you have when it comes to the young players, because that's pretty important, is being able to see what you've got there in the secondary, especially because the young guys are pretty solid, and they're all bigger guys too, right? They're all in the 6'1", 6'2" range. So you've got much taller, rangier corners, which I think Jay Valai's been going after on purpose because of, the conference we're playing in, the talent we're going against. You got to get guys that have not only the speed, but the power to be able to handle a player like a Ryan Williams, who you're going to see more of them. Same thing with a Cam Coleman. You're going to see more of those kind of guys. And it seems they only keep coming out of Alabama, which is pretty wild. I wonder if they have like a machine there where they're creating in super soldiers with super soldier serums.
Yeah, give me all ridiculous. The Alabama State and LSU wide receiver or Louisiana wide receivers.
Investigate the state of Alabama, please. Someone go start focusing on that. See if they've got like a super soldier serum thing that they've got going around in the water. But I digress. You've got to have these bigger corners, but I'm ready to see what the ones we have would look like. Especially in play. So spring practice, I really want to see, like I said, Kip and Kobe. I need to see them step up and really, they're going to be the difference makers in making sure everybody understands the defense. It feels like it starts with them. But as you mentioned with Gentry's shoulder coming back, I want to see with these young guys and how they are able to contribute early. They're ones that also will need to step up because there's a good chance they're going to have to play.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like on offense, everybody's got to be ready to go. You cannot go into the season saying, no, I'm just going to redshirt this year. I'm not going to get an opportunity to play. No, you got to have that mentality that you're going to be getting some snaps. But I don't really have much concern about the defensive line. I don't have much concern about the linebacker room, and I don't really have any concern about the safety group. Even though you lost critical pieces off of each of those depth charts in Downs, Terry off the defensive line, in Stutzman at linebacker, in Billy Bowman at safety. Aside from just the fact that, okay, you got to replace those snaps and it's veteran leadership and listen, they're very, very talented players. You've got to replace them. I love the depth that Todd Bates and Miguel Chavis have built along the defensive line, that whatever linebacker coach, whether it's Zach Alley or Brent Venables or Ted Roof or whatever analyst has been recruiting, I love the depth that they've built at linebacker, although it's getting a little bit thinner with each year. So they're going to have to make sure 2026 is a heavy linebacker class. And I love the depth that Brandon Hall has built at 50. It's at the middle, you're good to go. It's just figuring out cornerback. Find some guys that can play all 12, 13, hopefully 16 games. I think you're cooking, man. I think you're cooking on defense, and I think you have a chance to be even better than what you were last year.
Yeah, I agree. If as long as you get enough games out of everybody.
Yeah.
There's no way that everybody's going to be able to play every single game. But like I said, I really like some of the young players. And you can tell the staff, I've mentioned this before, the staff really likes their recruits. And so they try to play them as much as possible. If we can play more of them, like I said, some of the young players, especially in secondary, in the corner position, yeah, I think that's going to really help us long term. We just need to be able to... Yeah, we're going to need to be able to play a lot of the young guys. I want to see what those corners are going to look like.
I think we'll find out just how much the coaching staff likes the young group of corners that hasn't played much if they don't go into the spring transfer portal window and go to try to find a veteran corner. If they say, hey, we're good to go, then I think you got to believe that they're probably going to be pretty good. Otherwise, they'll go get somebody. So at this point, at least they're going to get some valuable spring reps. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Go check out the Locked On College Basketball podcast with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. Dude, it's early. I'm sorry, guys. We're making it through, though.
We love you.
Yeah. John Williams' mental capacity needs to step up as well, in addition to Gentry shoulder. Go check it out. It's March Madness. We got conference tournament play that's going to be starting here over the next few days, and that's going to be a big part of what decides number one seeds. It's going to help you set your bracket. If you're trying to win your pool, you got to go check out Locked On College Basketball. They'll give you all the inside info, all the best analysis on college basketball with Isaac Shade, Andy Patton, not Andy Patton and Isaac Shade, or it is Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. We're done. Subscribe to Jay's show, Unfair Sports, where you get more clarity. My show. You can read my work, Sooners Wire. Follow us at Locked On Sooners. Until next time, bye. Struggles.